Day 78 of reading through the scriptures. This is part 2. I accidentally hit stop at the end of my first 2 chapters. I do 4 chapters a day, so we did one in Exodus, one in Jeremiah, and this is now Psalms 78. We'll also do John 9. That's actually out of order, but yesterday I did John 10, so I'm just catching up. Anyway, Psalm 78. My people, give ear to my Torah, incline your ears to the words of my mouth. I open my mouth in a parable, I utter riddles of old, which we have heard and known. For our fathers have related them to us, we do not hide them from their children, relating to the generation to come the praises of Yahweh, and his strength and his wonders which he has done. For he raised a witness in Yaakov, and set a Torah in Yisrael, which he commanded our fathers to teach them to their children, that it might be known to a generation to come, to children who would be born, to rise up and relate them to their children, and place their trust in Elohim, and not forget the works of El, but watch over his commands, and not be like their fathers, the stubborn and rebellious generation, a generation which did not prepare its heart, whose spirit was not steadfast to El. The children of Ephraim, armed and bowmen, turned back in the day of battle. They did not guard the covenant of Elohim, and they refused to walk in his Torah, and they forgot his deeds and his wonders which he had shown them. He did wonders in the sight of their fathers, in the land of Mitzrayim, in the field of Zoan. He split the sea and caused them to pass through, and he made the waters stand up like a heap, and led them with a cloud by day, and all the night with the light of fire. He split the rocks in the wilderness, and made them drink as from the great depths, and brought forth streams from the rock, and caused waters to come down as rivers. Yet they sinned still more against him, to rebel against the Most High in the desert, and they tried El in their heart by asking food according to their desire. And they spoke against Elohim, and they said, Is El able to set up table in the wilderness? Look, he struck at the rock, so that the waters gushed out, and the streams overflowed. Is he able to give us bread also? Would he provide meat for his people? Therefore Yahweh heard, and he was wroth. So fire was kindled against Yaakov, and displeasure also came up against Yisrael. Because they did not believe in Elohim, neither did they trust in his deliverance. Yet he had commanded the clouds above, and opened the doors of the heavens, and he rained down manna on them to eat. And he gave them the grain of the heavens. Men ate bread of the mighty. He sent them provisions to satisfaction. He made an east wind blow in the heavens, and by his power he brought in the south wind. And he rained meat on them like the dust, and winged birds like the sand of the seas, and let them fall in the midst of his camp all around his dwelling place. So they ate and were completely satisfied, for he brought them what they desired. They had not turned away from their desire. Their food was still in their mouths when the wrath of Elohim came against him. And he killed among their fat ones, and he struck down the choicest ones of Yisrael. In spite of all this, they still sinned, and did not believe in his wonders. So he ended their days in a breath, and their years in trouble. When he killed them, then they sought him, and they returned and did earnestly seek El. And they remembered that Elohim was their rock, and the Most High El, their Redeemer. But they flattered him with their mouth, and they lied to him with their tongue. And their heart was not steadfast with him. And they were not true to his covenant, but he, the compassionate one, pardoned crookedness, and did not destroy them. And many a time turned his displeasure away, and did not stir up all his wrath. For he remembered that they were but flesh, a passing breath that does not return. How often they rebelled against him in the wilderness, and grieved him in the desert. And again they tried El, and provoked the set-apart one of Yisrael. And they did not remember his hand, the day when he redeemed them from the adversary, how he worked his signs in Mitzrayim, and his wonders in the field of Zoan. He turned the rivers into blood, and they could not drink their streams. He sent among them swarms of flies which devoured them, and frogs which destroyed them, and gave their crops to the caterpillar, and their labor to the locust. He destroyed their vines with hail, and their sycamore trees with frost, and gave their beasts over to the hail, and their livestock to bolts of fire. He sent on them the burning of his displeasure, wrath and rage and distress, a deputation of messengers of evils. He made a path for his displeasure. He did not spare their being from death, but gave their life over to the plague. He struck all the firstborn in Mitzrayim, the first fruits of strength in the tents of Cham, then made his own people go forth like sheep, and led them in the wilderness like a flock. He led them on safely, and they did not fear, but the sea covered their enemies. And he brought them to the border of the set-apart place, this mountain which his right hand had gained, and drove out all nations before them, and allotted them a measured inheritance, and made the tribes of Israel dwell in their tents. Yet they tried and rebelled against the Most High Elohim, and did not guard his witnesses. But they turned back and acted treacherously like their fathers. They twisted like a treacherous bow. For they enraged him with their high places. They moved him to jealousy with their carved images. When Elohim heard this, he was wroth and greatly despised Israel. And he left the dwelling place of Shiloh, the tent which he had set up among men. And he gave his strength into captivity, and his comeliness into the hand of the adversary. And he gave his people over to the sword, and he was wroth with his inheritance. His young men were consumed by fire, and his maidens were not praised. His priests fell by the sword, and their widows could not weep. Then Yahweh awoke as one asleep, as a mighty man who shouts because of wine. And he struck his adversaries backward. He put them on to an everlasting reproach. Then he rejected the tent of Yosef, and did not choose the tribe of Ephraim, but chose the tribe of Yehudah, Mount Zion, which he loved. And he built his set-apart place like the heights. Like the earth he founded it forever. And he chose David his servant, and took him from the sheepfolds. He brought him in from tending the ewes, to shepherd Yaakov his people, and Yisrael his inheritance. And he shepherded them according to the integrity of his heart, and he led them by the skill of his hands. John chapter 9. And passing by, he saw a man blind from birth. And his taught ones asked him, saying, Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he should be born blind? Yeshua answered, Neither this man nor his parents sinned, but that the works of Elohim might be made manifest in him. Is it necessary for me to work the works of him who sent me? While it is day, night is coming when no one is able to work. While I am in the world, I am the light of the world. Having said this, he spat on the ground and made clay with his saliva, and applied the clay to the eyes of the blind man. And he said to him, Go, wash in the pool of Shiloah, which means sent. So he went and washed, and came seeing. Therefore the neighbors and those who saw him before, that he was blind, said, Is not this he who was sitting and begging? Others said, This is he. Others said, He is like him. He said, I am. So they said to him, How were your eyes opened? He answered and said, A man called Yeshua made clay and applied it to my eyes, and said to me, Go to the pool of Shiloah and wash. And I went and washed, and I received sight. And they said to him, Where is he? He said, I do not know. They brought to the Pharisee the one who was once blind. They brought to the Pharisees the one who was once blind. Now it was the Sabbath when Yeshua made the clay and opened his eyes. Therefore the Pharisees also asked him again how he had received his sight. And he said to them, He put clay on my eyes, and I washed, and I see. Therefore some of the Pharisees said, This man is not from Elohim, because he does not guard the Sabbath. Others said, How is a man who is a sinner able to do such miracles? And there was a division among them. So they said to the blind one again, What do you say about him, because he opened your eyes? And he said, He is a prophet. However, the Yehudim did not believe concerning him, that he had been blind and received his sight, till they called the parents of him who had received his sight. And they asked them, saying, Is this your son, who you say was born blind? How then does he now see? His parents answered them and said, We know that this is our son, and that he was born blind. And how he now sees we do not know, or who opened his eyes we do not know. He is of age, ask him, he shall speak concerning himself. His parents said this because they were afraid of the Yehudim, for the Yehudim had already agreed that if anyone confessed that he was Messiah, he should be put out of the congregation. Because of this, his parents said, He is of age, ask him. So for the second time they called the man who was blind, and said to him, Give esteem to Elohim, we know that this man is a sinner. Then he answered and said, Whether he is a sinner I do not know. I only know that I was blind, now I see. And they asked him once more, What did he do to you? How did he open your eyes? He answered them, I have already told you already, and you did not hear. Why do you wish to hear it again? Do you wish to become his taught ones too? Then they abused him and said, You are his taught one, but we are taught ones of Moshe. We know that Elohim has spoken to Moshe, but this one we do not know where he is from." The man answered and said to them, "Why, this is a wonder. You do not know where he is from, yet he opened my eyes. And we know that Elohim does not hear sinners. But if anyone fears Elohim and does his desire, he hears him. From of old it has never been heard that anyone opened the eyes of one who was born blind. If this one were not from Elohim, he could have done none at all." They answered and said to him, You are completely born in sins, and you are teaching us?" And they cast him out. Yeshua heard that they had cast him out, and when he found him, he said to him, "Do you believe in the Son of Elohim?" He answered and said, "Who is he, Master, that I might believe in him?" And Yeshua said to him, "You have both seen him, and he who speaks with you is he." And he said, "Master, I believe," and bowed before him. And Yeshua said, For judgment I have come into this world, that those not seeing might see, and those seeing might become blind." And those of the Pharisees who were with him heard these words, and said to him, "Are we blind too?" Yeshua said to them, "If you were blind, you would have no sin, but now you say, we see, therefore your sin remains."